The Commanders' odds to win a championship didn't change at all. What does Deebo got left in the tank? We've seen declining numbers here from Deebo Samuel.
If Deebo doesn't have a good year in Washington, people are going to be like, I can't believe we spent $20 million or whatever it is of cap space on Deebo Samuel. Who gives a shit?
Look at the release.
There's your separation.
Great route.
Stutter and go. Gets by clean.
That is unbelievable.
Maybe the greatest catch I've ever seen.
In other wide receiver news, we're taking a look at Deebo Samuel. He got traded to the Washington Commanders. There's a lot of connective tissue between San Francisco and Washington in terms of their front offices, so it's a move that wasn't a total surprise. Okay, here's the question, though. I scrolled through social media, and my thoughts are somewhat similar, but what does Deebo got left in the tank? We've seen declining numbers here from Deebo Samuel, really, truly over the last, 2-3 years. I think that is undeniable. But what does he have left? You can be a declining player, but still be a good player, if that makes any sense. So I wonder, is that where Deebo is at? I'll bring this up, Matt, because I tell you, I don't think the boys in the desert, Vegas thinks it's a non-move. The Commanders' odds to win a championship didn't change at all. That is surprising. And again, I think the common fan might think, oh, Deebo to Washington is going to form a pretty nice little combination there with Terry McLaurin and Jaden Daniels. Vegas is like, okay, that's fine, but it's kind of sort of a non-move for the betting public. So I'll ask you, Matt, what do you think Deebo's got left? Does it mean anything for Washington?
Well, it's funny. I think if you actually want to just click out of this right now, that's actually a pretty good summation of what this move is which don't listen to the rest of the show, but that's actually a pretty good summation of what this move is, which is, yeah, I think it's a good trade for Washington, but it's probably not a needle mover. Like Deebo's not a needle mover at this point. Now, I called this landing spot. I said on my Yahoo show, like, this was going to be the Deebo team. Got that right. And it's a lot of because of what you said there, which was the connective tissue, not just from a front office standpoint. Adam Peters, the former general manager, comes from the former San Francisco 49ers front office executive. He's a general manager for Washington. And so, again, there's connective tissue there. He's part of the group that drafted Deebo Samuel, knows Deebo Samuel. That stuff just helps, right? That always helps get deals done. Front office to front office relationships, that also helps too. And Washington is absorbing the entire Deebo Samuel contract. And guess what? They've got the room to do it. They've got a ton of cap room. They're one of these teams that just has more cap space than they could possibly spend on this free agent class. So it's not your money. It's not my money. It wasn't money that was going to get donated to charity. It's going to just get money. Who cares if it's being overspent on Deebo Samuel? Now, I do think it is overspent on Deebo Samuel at this point. 5th round pick, again, who cares? Totally fair compensation. In terms of what does Deebo Samuel have left, that's tough, man. So we're dropping the free agent profiles on receptionperception.com next Monday. So those will go up on Monday morning. Throughout the day, we'll have free agent profiles rolling over there. Deebo is going to be included in that because he fits into an off-season impacted wide receiver, so he'll be on the site. Sure. So I've started the charting on Deebo Samuel. It's not looking so good. Really? and Deebo's a guy, by the way, I've done 4 of the 8 games so far. All of those games are early in the season, pre-pneumonia. Like, remember, we went to the hospital with pneumonia early on, and that was kind of used as like an excuse. Like we know at Reception Perception, Deebo Samuel's not a man coverage beater. Like, we've been talking about that based on his reception perception profile before it was like a national talking point. From 2020 to 2022, he was at 50.8%, 64.3%, and 56% success rate versus man coverage, all of which are slightly below average to poor numbers. Based on this 4-game sample, we're going to be way north of, or we're going to be way south of that. We're going to be well below that in terms of his ability to beat man coverage last year. And that's a big part of why, especially because Brandon Ayuk was not playing up to his capabilities and then got injured. The 49ers faced so much man coverage last year because they knew that defenses knew that their guys could not get open against man coverage. Is the success rate versus zone coverage is also, that's the thing that's always made him a great player. In addition to his yards after catch capabilities, is that he's one of the better zone beating receivers in the league. This 2024 sample, not looking like it's going to be one of the best success rate versus zone coverage seasons in the database. So I think there's a decline there. Like, there's just no question he's a declining player from an explosiveness standpoint. Doesn't come off the ball the same. He's still useful after the catch, and I think he's going to help the Commanders in that way. Remember, this is a team that was 4th in terms of plays on the field with wide receiver and tight end screens. This is a screen-heavy offense. Deebo can still be used in those manufactured ways, but is he like a true number 2 receiver anymore? I have my doubts. They have a number 1, an established guy in Terry McLaurin who's a pure perimeter player, and Deebo can fit in nicely into this receiving room. But I still think that they're going to be missing something in terms of like a second outside wide receiver when they go to 11 personnel.
I am a little bit worried too in terms of the fragility of it all, because you and I love Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin is great. He had a banner year in 2024, but he's entering his age 29 season as well. Deebo Samuel is going to be in his age 29 season too, right? So it's a little bit of an older wide receiver room. Injuries could be a concern here, and the depth beyond Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel, I don't think is very good. In my head, I didn't tweet this out. For those of you following along, I'm just not on X as much anymore, man. But anyways, the joke that I was going to fire out was, I hope everyone's ready for Deebo Samuel's 90 reception, 500-yard season coming up here, because it's going to be I would imagine it's going to be a ridiculous amount of bubble screens and basically just, these little gimmicky type routes to kind of sort of get the ball in his hands and see what he could do after the catch. I don't know, man. I'm not really, like I said, with Cliff Kingsbury there as the OC, I can very well imagine Deebo Samuel seeing a lot of these manufactured touches at or around the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, because again, I'm looking at plays where they had at least one wide receiver or tight end screen last year. Washington was 4th in catches on those plays. They were 21st in yards per reception on those plays. So hey, that fits into what you're talking about there.
Exactly.
A lot of catches, maybe not so many yards. Now, I do think Deebo Samuel's going to help in that, in terms of the yards after catch stuff. He could still break tackles. He's still a tough player to bring down overall. It's just he's never been a traditional separator, and even at his peak. And now he's a decline. Now he's the declined version of that. So, like I said, I still like this trade from Washington, because you're giving up a 5th round pick and you're spending cap space that you have to spend. Like, I'm sure if Deebo doesn't have a good year in Washington, people are gonna be like, I can't believe we spent $20 million or whatever it is of cap space on Deebo Samuel. Who gives a shit? Like, you have cap space, you got to spend it somehow. You have a lot of needs. This is a creative way to kind of fix one of those needs. Now, I think it doesn't mean that they're done at wide receiver. I think they're still going to probably still consider maybe bringing back De'Ami Brown or Noah Brown, or maybe adding a guy on the second day of the draft. I think those things are all kind of on the table. And I also don't think they've necessarily completely given up on Luke McCaffrey, who they drafted last year in the 3rd round, who's a project receiver, but somebody I think showed a little bit of route running ability last year, just wasn't involved very much in the offense. And I think I can see a world where Terry McLaurin's your boundary X receiver, and like Luke McCaffrey is your kind of big slot, and Deebo's your gadget guy. I think I can see how that offense comes together, but I still think they'll probably look for like one more perimeter dirty work type of player.
We'll see about the yards after the catch stuff. He's had declining yards after catch numbers each and every year for the past 4 seasons. So we'll see, man. I think I think it makes sense from all the points of view that you brought up. Hey, spend the money. You bring in a veteran. By the way, you bring in a veteran who's used to winning too. Like that's good for culture. Especially, I think when we're talking about Washington, you want to bring in guys that are used to winning, man, and like they know what it takes to win football games and establish that culture. So I think in that way, I think it's a home run. I think it's a home run for Washington in those regards. But again, we're talking about what appears to be a declining player. We'll see if he's got anything left in the tank here to make a real big impact here for Washington and try to take them to the next level. I don't know. We'll see.